Hey, Mark, I know we're talking about anger today, and anger is a real problem for some people. I'm really curious to hear what you have to say for us today.
Well, I'm kind of curious myself. I had a new client yesterday, and he specifically wanted to work on anger. So I immediately assumed he was a lion, and we're going to get into lions and unicorns today a little bit. And it turned
Mm-hmm.
out he was a unicorn. And it brought me back to this kind of age old question: is anger a quest for dominance, or is it somebody crying out in pain? And that's kind of the direction that we're going to go today.
Mm. Well, interesting. Well, you find yourself here watching the Mastering Thought channel with Dr. Mark Waller and Christina Black. And we talk about the mind, marriage, and emotions on this channel. So today we're talking about anger. Anger. Do you get angry because you're hurting, or do you get angry for another reason?
So one of the things that people can expect today is to really understand where anger comes from and two varieties of anger that people may not be aware of, and then what's missing from typical anger management, which will guide us into going into this deeper.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool. So, if you're new to this channel, stick around. If you've watched us before, like, subscribe, leave a comment. What would you like to know about anger today?
It seems to be a hot topic. So, what is anger and
Mm-hmm.
where does it come from? And
Mm-hmm.
I'll bet you can guess, Christina, where it comes from already, right?
Limbic system.
Yeah, it comes from the limbic system. It sure does. And here's
Woo.
here's the limbic system, this area right here, and specifically, let's see, anger happens. Oops, let's get that out of the way. In a response from the amygdala, which is the amygdala is this little green thing right down here. Now, I need to make a comment. It looks like there's only one. There's actually two.
Mm-hmm.
One in each hemisphere of the brain.
Got it.
And so, but in order to get angry, the amygdala has to basically perceive that we are under attack, and that's where the anger comes from. And then the other thing to comment on here is that this little structure right in here is called the hippocampus. And
Mm-hmm.
the hippocampus accesses memories to go along to associate with the feeling of being attacked. So that's where it
Mm.
comes from. Now, the
What does
limbic
that mean by
system.
navigation?
So when we perceive we're being attacked, in order to have that perception, let me get us back on the screen here. In order to have that perception, we have to pair our current experience with past experiences. And so that pairing or that association tells us, oh, this is just like an experience I had before where I was attacked. And
Yeah,
so that's where it comes from.
that's navigation.
Well, when did I say navigation? Repeat what I said.
Oh, I was just reading the chart, and so I asked why does it say navigation on the hippocampus too?
Let's see. So the amygdala activates fight. The hippocampus pairs memories. The memories come from childhood. Let's see.
Yeah, it was just an illustration. It's okay. It's not a big deal. Maybe if
Oh, okay.
someone knows what it means in navigation, they can write a comment so that I can learn from them.
I don't remember exactly what I said, so I'm
It's all right.
grasping here.
It's just in the graphic. It's okay. We can drop it. Move on. Amygdala. Let's talk about it.
What graphic was it in, by the way?
This right here. the very bottom, hippocampus, memory, navigation.
Oh, oh, oh. I'm sorry. Yes, let's complete the thought here. So, the hippocampus has to do with memory, which is what we're talking about, but it also helps us navigate where we are in space.
Hmm.
So,
So not like which streets do I need to drive on, but how do I walk in between the table and the couch,
well, yes.
or all of
So
it?
it's like right now, my hippocampus is telling me where I am in the room right now.
Yeah. Okay, okay, got it. So it's
All
spatial
right.
awareness too.
It's spatial awareness and memory. Now, what's important about the memory part of it is the limbic system is fight or flight, anger, fear. It's the part of the brain we share with other animals, so it's all about survival. And all
Hmm.
emotions come from the limbic system. But
Hmm.
here's the key part of this, and that is that the limbic system's completely wired up by the time we're 5 years of age. So those
Right.
memories that the hippocampus uses to tell the amygdala we're being under attack come from our childhood. And I double
Okay.
checked this. I've been talking about this for years, but I just double checked the research day before yesterday, and it turns out that the limbic system is almost entirely wired up by the time we're about 5 or 6 years of age.
Interesting.
And the significance of that
Yeah.
is just really overlooked, especially by people in my profession, because they don't understand what control the limbic system has over our lives.
Right.
So anyway, back to this. The amygdala activates fight, and the hippocampus pairs memories. The memories come from childhood.
Hmm.
Okay, so far so good?
So far, so good. I did want to add one thing before you read that too, though, as you're saying it's wired up by the time you're 5 or 6. And I didn't realize at first that that also meant it can't act more mature than a 5 year or 6 year old.
That's right. We're looking through the lens of
And
a
that's what
5 year
makes,
old.
yeah, yeah. So I'm just making sure to point it out because then it makes a lot more of the weakness of it make sense, of
Well,
letting your limbic system run the show.
and when you think about it, we know this is true because when we get angry, we feel like we're 5 years old. We feel very
Yeah. Why are
childish.
you acting like a child? Yeah.
That's right. Exactly. That's where it comes
Right.
from because we literally
Yeah.
are acting as a child.
Yeah.
Because
And like so much of my brain goes, well, that's not
well, that
fair. Like,
and because this is the whole point. It's because that part of the brain is a child still.
totally. Yeah.
I mean, even though
What about me?
you're 40 years old, the limbic system is still a child brain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Amygdalas.
All right. So, a little logic here. Attacks can inflict pain. Therefore, traditionally at least, I have looked at anger as a defense against pain. So when
Mm.
somebody is angry, they're defending the pain of being attacked.
Mm-hmm.
So if my wife insults me and says you look really bad in that shirt or whatever, then that pain that I feel, I don't want to feel that pain, so I get angry instead to make the pain go away.
Right.
And we
Yeah.
literally become addicted to that anger physiologically.
Because of how it staves off certain hormones or bad feelings or what?
That's right, because gets rid of the bad feelings and literally makes us feel better. We get angry to get rid of that pain, and it becomes habitual after a while.
I could see that being like a high percentage of the time that people feel very justified in their anger. I
Right.
deserve to be angry about this. I want to talk to you about this thing so you can tell me how right I am about getting to be mad about this.
That's right.
Like
And
that.
if you think
Okay.
about it, 5 year olds love to be right.
Oh man. Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Okay, next idea here.
All
So
right.
here's lion and unicorn, and we're going to talk about the lion unicorn model. Do the lions and unicorns experience the same pain that drives anger? And this is where I kind of had a bit of an epiphany. You know when you've got a concept over here in this frame of reference, and you've got a concept over here in this frame of reference, and all of a sudden it dawns on you the two go together.
Yes.
So,
Yes. It was like a beautiful dovetailing. Ah.
yes, and so
Talk to me,
that's what
Mark. Tell
happened.
me about
That
it.
that's what happened when I was going through this, because
Yeah.
traditionally, lions, their pain, their anger is a defense against their pain, and so I just kind of assumed it would be the same
Sure.
thing for unicorns. And so the question is,
Mhm.
the lions and unicorns experience the same pain that drives anger, and now we've got to go in and take a look at the lion and unicorn. And so here's the lion unicorn model. And for those of you listening out there, this has been validated now by research. And in the research uh, around couples, what they've discovered is that one person usually plays the role of the emotional pursuer, and then the other one plays the role of the avoider or the pursuee.
Mhm.
And so here we've got, when the lion gets angry, the unicorn, gets anxious because they don't like conflict, and so they avoid. And then
Right.
the
Right.
avoidance looks like rejection, like nobody cares, and it makes them more angry. And that's the cycle that is so
Mhm.
common in relationships.
Yeah, and I can say with my unicorn, there's really only a handful of times that I can remember him being like angry and using anger to get through to me about something.
Right.
And that was when his back was against the wall.
Exactly. So hold that thought for just a minute. That's
Okay.
great. But notice now in the cycle, and what you just said is exactly true. So for the unicorns, you don't see anger over here anywhere, do you?
No.
But for the lion, anger is a very common thing that they use. So
Right.
this is what leads to what you're saying there. So let's take this system another step and take a look, because this is very
Mm-hmm.
important. So the lion
Okay.
tends to feel rejected, and
Right.
their painful feeling is nobody cares or they're not good enough.
Aw.
And so they use anger to defend against the pain.
Totally. Yeah.
And their goal is approval.
Yeah.
Okay, so now the unicorn, they tend to perceive that there's going to be conflict, that they're in some kind of trouble, they're being attacked. They feel anxious, and so their defense is they avoid so they can be safe.
Mm-hmm.
So now, key concept here, and let me ask you a question. When you look at this
Yeah.
line right here, what is the most important thing somebody should be working on? In this line
Working
right
on
here. Yeah,
between
if
their perceptions, their feelings, defensive behavior, and goal, it would have to be perception.
exactly. That's exactly
Yeah,
right. So
because
that,
that's the
go ahead.
start of the merry-go-round. Well, I'm just saying that's the start of the merry-go-round. You don't want to
Right,
take the ride around, like you don't have to go in the loop.
right.
Let's just make sure you're seeing things the way they really are and not as the way parts of your brain might have you believe.
Yes, excellent. So perception is the key concept here. However, let's go back to the lion's pain. So remember
Yeah,
now, the lion then, their pain is the pain of rejection.
right.
Okay, so now you brought up a minute ago that in your experience, unicorns don't express anger very often. They only express it when their back's against the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at that. So the only time, and I'm using the word trapped instead of backs against the wall, same concept.
Sure. Yeah, pinned.
So
Fewer exits.
yeah, no exit.
Yeah, no,
So
yeah, exactly. No accent.
now let's explore this a minute. So their perception is they're trapped, and of course, here's my unicorn here in the middle of a big trap. I thought that was very
Yeah,
clever.
yeah. It's a great hair day too, might I add.
And so if their perception is they're trapped, then their anger is not coming from the pain of rejection, is it?
No. Well, lack of acceptance, maybe.
Well, but think about it. If you're trapped, if this trap is going to get sprung closed, what do you have to do? How does anger come into the strategy?
You think it's going to help you get safe faster. That's my guess.
Exactly, exactly. And so
Yeah.
this is
It's a
where
force.
the force, yes, and I'm gonna switch that to the concept of dominance.
Dominance. Yes.
And
We have to
so
use force
so
for
in
dominance.
traditionally, in when we think of kind of like psychology, we think of anger being a defense against pain or a an attempt to be more powerful or dominant.
Right. Yeah.
And so
Mm-hmm.
what's happening, let me see if I can find my slide again. What's happening to whoops, there's the unicorn. What's happening to the unicorn is they use anger to dominate, to assert their dominance.
Mm-hmm.
Now
Mm-hmm.
this was a revelation to me when this is like these two pieces that came together because
Mm-hmm.
I could never understand how a defense against pain and dominance could go together. How could they exist at the same time? And then I realized
Right. It's different people.
exactly, that's exactly what I realized.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
lions use anger to defend pain, and unicorns
Mm-hmm.
use anger to assert dominance.
Mm-hmm. Because they're looking for safety primarily,
Well,
and
they feel they're,
steady
yes.
reliability. Yeah.
Well, they feel trapped. And so they
Right.
feel the only thing they can do then is they can assert their dominance to try to get out of the
Right.
situation.
Yeah.
And that
Interesting.
was really a
Yes.
revelation to me that they were establishing dominance in order to respond to a threat.
Okay, so this is actually super important for marriages and relationships because if you're this close with someone and you start to see someone in your life who habitually withdraws from conflict first, but now they're starting to get bigger, that means they're feeling like they're at a more desperate place. Right? Like
Yes,
for their family members watching that unicorn, this is a huge cry for help, right?
yes, and
Or like an announcement of desperation.
yes, exactly. Now that's
Yeah.
very interesting. You're saying it that way because when you when you think about this unicorn being trapped, now when they feel like they have no alternative, they're going to use anger. Now, what's interesting about
Mhm.
this is that the more stressful the unicorn's childhood was, the faster
Mhm.
they feel trapped and get angry.
Mhm. Man. Okay, so then like in a problem solving effort, so then if we are seeing people in our life begin to act out in anger because of feeling trapped, then the best thing, like, if we are like their partner or something, the best thing we can do is maybe help them realize they're safe and that we don't want them trapped and whatever it is, we can figure it out.
Well, the answer to the question is comes in interpreting the word trapped. See, if their perception they're being trapped, what is the lion doing in the relationship that is being perceived as trapping them?
Yeah, exactly. So then you follow that trail to
And
hopefully a good end,
well, where it leads you
compromise
is
of how to change.
where it leads you is you need to back off so they don't feel trapped.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Because
Yeah.
the unicorns perceive pressure and control, and they will respond to that passive aggressively until they feel trapped, and then they will lash out. And so
Mm-hmm.
anything you can do to take the pressure off will make it less likely they feel trapped.
Yeah. And at what point, like, I think it's kind of hard to ask generically, so fill in my gaps, whatever. But at what point should a couple be considering going to therapy or individuals going to therapy in that kind of a scenario? Just if the backing off doesn't do quite enough, or it still feels confusing how to back off, or
Well, that defines when they should go seek help.
is when it doesn't just naturally feel resolved on its own.
Right. If you can't resolve the conflicts on your own, it needs to be a warning sign that there's something going on that you're not seeing, and that's when a good therapist can step in and help.
Yeah. I guess I'm asking these questions because I didn't really have a lot of anger in my household growing up, but my first boyfriend,
Okay.
long-term boyfriend I had was very angry, and I had absolutely no idea how to deal with him at all.
Right.
And I had no idea the signs that or the red flags that were popping up that I should have been like, "Hey, I shouldn't be with you," or "Hey, you should go to therapy," or things like that I might be better prepared for now.
Well, a couple things go through my mind. Let's just analyze it for a second. Was he crying out in pain, or was he asserting dominance?
He's kind of doing everything, everything. It felt like I don't know.
Well, you're a lion, and the chances are good he was probably a unicorn then, right?
He was pretty combative, I
Okay.
gotta say.
Well, and so the other thing is, I mean, let's just state this for the record, and I'm interested in hearing what people have to say about this in the comments. But if you're not
Yeah,
married, if you're not committed in a relationship, and somebody is acting out like that, that is your, permission slip to run and get away,
yeah, yeah,
which obviously you must
yeah.
have.
Eventually, I got smart, but it took me a while to realize, like, oh, this is very unhealthy. The good stuff isn't worth the bad stuff. Okay.
Now, a
You live
common
and
mistake
learn.
a common mistake people make is that they believe if they get married, they're going to help solve the problem, and actually, it makes the problem 10 times
Right.
worse.
It puts a mag light on it. Let's just say that.
Well, people's issues come up the closer you get and the more committed the relationship, and that just brings it on tenfold.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me give you a scenario. I have a new client right now, and
Okay.
he led the conversation with, "I'm too angry. I need to be less angry." And I immediately thought, he must be a lion. And then I quizzed him a
Hmm.
little bit, and I said, "Well, in the relationship, who tends to avoid conflict?" And he said, "I do." And suddenly I realized, oh. Then I went into his background, and it turned out his father was very abusive, and there was fighting in the home on a daily basis. And I knew immediately, okay, so what's going on is when his wife begins to get upset with him, he immediately goes to the extreme of feeling trapped, like he's going to be attacked by his father. That's all. This is all in the limbic system. And so he goes to
Yeah.
the anger to try to assert dominance, and that's what he was doing.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. Interesting. That'll be interesting to hear back actually after this week or whatever if he is able to have like success every time with that or how often it helps interrupt his normal pattern.
Well, you would think now, in some cases, people then would, they'd say, okay, well, what's the answer to this? What do I need to do? And one of the answers would be anger management.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now,
But
Christina, I'm going to kind of
I don't
set you up.
actually know. Oh, I was just curious. Do you know like the success to failure rate of anger management? I just don't have any idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. My impression is it's not very successful. And I'm going to tell you
Okay.
why here. So let's look at the.
Okay.
So what I did was I researched all the elements of typical anger management programs, and the first on the list was self awareness, which is great. That sounds great, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. Yeah.
So recognizing the
Recognizing.
signs of
Go ahead.
rising anger and understanding the triggers that make you angry is a crucial first step. This involves being aware of your physical and emotional response. Okay, so I'm going to go back.
Mm-hmm.
Where were we here? Um, I'm going to go back to this and ask you what was missing from that first suggestion.
What was missing from the first suggestion
Yeah,
of
the anger
the anger
management
management
technique.
side?
Right. Let's see. Here we go. That's where I was.
Awareness of anger, recognizing the signs of rising anger, understanding the triggers that make you angry is a crucial first step. So, I mean, I can see that they're talking about like try to catch it as fight or flight is kicking in, but
Right.
I would even say like just sidestep the fight or flight response altogether if you can by just remembering for your client that he's not 5 and this isn't his dad, his wife isn't his dad.
Okay, so when we go back, let me go back here. Uh, so what if you look at that orange line? Which step are
Yeah.
you talking about?
Well, we're talking about the perception step and
Ex-
at the beginning of it.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So here's the problem. The problem is that anger management tends to ignore the perception.
Yeah, they're like starting right away on like you having your feelings hurt or
Right,
whatever.
right.
Yeah.
Now it even gets worse. The next suggestion in anger management is self control.
Now that you're 5 years old.
So yeah,
Now that you're five
exactly.
years old. Yeah.
So it says
Okay. Well, I
once
can
you're
see why that
aware of
would be
your anger,
tricky.
huh?
Oh, I can see why that would be tricky.
So once you're aware of your anger triggers and signs, so when my wife doesn't do the dishes, I get angry. Oh, that's my trigger. This means taking a
Yeah.
moment to breathe, think, and prevent an immediate, often irrational reaction. So this is completely ridiculous because once the limbic system is triggered, you're not going to be able to exercise self control.
Right. That's going to be real hard. Real hard.
So again, this ignores perception.
Yeah. It's about pausing and choosing how to respond. I agree as long as that's first step. Before you go into fight or flight, pause and think about how you
Right,
are going to respond.
right.
Do you want to let your 5-year-old drive the car? I don't, usually.
So
I
what
think about it.
and really, when you think about this, what is the basic perception that is allowing the trigger?
What is the basic perception that is allowing you to what the trigger? Feel the trigger?
In other
Uh,
words, what's the basic? the basic perception comes from the amygdala, doesn't it? What is that perception?
That you're entering into a familiar situation that is not safe, that you're being attacked.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So none of these things about anger management say that you need to understand that your perception of being attacked is not correct. You're not actually being attacked. All of them
Mm.
assume that you don't, you're not aware of what your perception is. You're just going to correct the behavior.
Right. Well, and that's like honestly been such a great thing about talking with you about these kinds of things because you offer a new perspective on thinking in general,
E- Exactly.
relationship to your thoughts in general. So I love it. Let's keep talking about it.
All right, let's go to the next one. The next one is communication. Effective communication is vital, expressing your feelings and needs clearly, blah, 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 blah. This is all therapist talk. So, can the monkey brain effectively communicate?
I mean, eloquently or effectively? Because I think I can get its point across.
So, here you
However,
are. Imagine, here you are. You're triggered. You're angry. You think you're being attacked. And you think you're going to have the presence of mind to say, wait a minute, I need to communicate effectively. Those things just don't go together.
yeah. Okay. Well, I know I've had experiences like that before, but they've been me really trying to be in control of myself and not lose it, like in real high stakes scenarios.
Right.
So, like, it's like I'm doing damage control because I see this is crazy and I could lose it or I could get serious and control real fast.
So here's another one. Stress
But
reduction.
okay, yes.
Stress reduction is a contributor to anger. So all you need to, and all of these things are good, by the way. Relaxation exercises, meditation, physical activities, or hobbies might mitigate anger. In my experience, this doesn't, it helps, but it does not work
Uh-huh.
because it ignores what, the perception is that happens when the person gets angry.
Right. Because the perception of getting attacked, like you could just have left a massage, and if someone stabbed you, you'd still get angry.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
you can't just like massage yourself out of the ability to feel anger.
So here's one more. Empathy.
Okay.
I think this, they see these get more and more ridiculous as we go through them. So, how is a 5 year old angry child going to show empathy?
Right. They can't really.
No,
It's not
no,
in that wheelhouse.
right. So, your limbic system is activated, fight or flight is activated, you think you're under attack, and oh, you need to remember to have empathy. No, that's not going to work.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
here's some more just to wrap this up. Problem solving, challenging, irrational. So you're irrational to begin with, and now you're going to challenge your irrational thoughts. No,
You're going to
that's
have the foresight to see they're irrational.
right. Exactly. You're going to
Not
think you're
all the
totally
time, yeah.
justified, and then avoiding blame. And this is my favorite: setting boundaries. Setting boundaries is a
Hmm.
phrase that absolutely means nothing. If this is
You think
therapist
so?
talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So setting boundaries. So if my wife doesn't clean the kitchen, I'm going to set a boundary. What's the boundary going to be?
Well, okay, so like last night, I put three hand towels in the towel area after doing laundry. And then we had some friends come spend the night, and I wanted to put like two new hand towels out for them to have towels. And my kids had already used them all. It's like they smelled that new towels were around and then they got them all dirty on purpose. And so I could get angry, but instead I came out and said, "Hey, is there any way we can work out a thing where like you just only limit yourself to one hand towel a day so, so that we
But
can have clean towels for more than a half hour kind of a thing?" I don't know. That's like setting boundaries. And if she kept using all the towels first thing right away, I would get mad.
So here, let me respond to that because you're making my point.
Okay.
Your
Okay.
definition of setting a boundary is completely different than my definition of setting a boundary.
Okay. What's yours?
Well, it doesn't matter. But it's okay that you have your definition. My definition might be you can't you know if you don't clean the kitchen, I'm going to get angry. So you need to clean that. My
Okay.
boundary is you need to clean the kitchen.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say here is the idea of boundaries becomes this kind of amorphous thing that can easily be turned into a cudgel and used as a weapon.
Yeah, it sounds like it could make someone be controlling real fast because
That's
otherwise
right.
they'll get angry. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Okay. I see your point. I see your point.
So I haven't ever, as a therapist for 25 years, I've never seen this whole idea of setting boundaries as being a useful concept at all.
Yeah.
It's just kind of silly. So where do we need to go here? We need to go to anger management deals with awareness of anger, controlling emotions and behavior instead of awareness of the perception.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In other words, it's like trying to get the horse back in the barn.
Mm-hmm. Right. When you could have just never let it out.
Exactly. So if you understood what your perception was in the instant that it's happened, you'd realize your perception was not accurate and you wouldn't even get
Yeah.
angry.
Yeah, exactly. And I say it a fair amount on this, but just letting your limbic system rule you is awful. It's a cruel master.
So so the
So
point I'm
let's
trying to
let's use our tools that you offer.
So the point I'm trying to make here is that all of these anger management techniques ignore the fact that the person's perception is distorted from the very beginning.
Yeah,
And that's why they don't work.
right.
Because if the voice in your head is telling you you're being mistreated when you're not, you're going to get angry. But if you realize the voice in your head is lying to you, you're not going to get angry. You're going to realize, oh, this is silly. I'm not going to go there.
Yeah, why would I get upset?
Now, I realize this
Mm-hmm.
discussion is, really from my point of view, with your input. I'm really interested in what other people have to say about this topic because I think it's
Yeah.
a useful discussion to have, and people I'm sure have their own specific circumstances that maybe inform them differently, and I'd really like to hear about that because I'd really like to get deeper into
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. It might be interesting to, if we get um enough meat in the comments, we do another episode responding to that.
Right, exactly. So
Yeah.
last kind of idea here. Self-awareness is about seeing how the limbic system hijacks perception.
Mm-hmm.
So real anger management is the ability to be aware of how the limbic system is operating, and the number one thing that the limbic system does is it hijacks your perception based on the eyes of a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And so now, just as a kind of a teaser here, our next
Mm-hmm.
episode is going to be on the topic. We're going to do a deep dive on perception.
Perception. I think we need a soundboard. I can just push my perception button when I need to.
Let's see.
I would also really want like the Christmas Vacation. What's the production company that does Christmas Vacation? Anyway, the little boom noise. I would want that too on
Oh,
my
how
soundboard.
about this? How about this one?
Okay.
Is that well? That probably
Yeah.
wasn't loud enough.
Well, I could hear it. I could hear it. Well, you do need a badencha, so that's good. Yeah. It's pretty loud. That was pretty loud for me. We'll work on the levels. We'll get a good soundboard going, Mark. Don't worry about it.
So,
Well, thanks everybody for hanging out with us talking about anger. And yeah, I'm excited to get into perception. It's going to be good.
so this topic of anger is extremely important because when couples have difficulty, there's usually anger is usually a target of
Yeah,
the difficulty, and understanding it more and the
right.
perception that drives it is critical.
Yeah.
So,
For each person too, because if they're going to be using anger slightly differently, well, really, they're using it in the same way, but it means they're at a different point in their exasperation scale, maybe.
well, I think one of the key concepts that we talked about today was this idea that for unicorns, they feel trapped, and it's all about whatever happened to them when they were little kids. And if you're married to a unicorn, or if you're in a relationship with one, and you don't have that context, you'll never understand their anger. It'll never make any
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah, right. But that it's just used as a force to make change happen, so that people will just understand you, or the problem will get fixed faster. So that's how it's the same. But you're right that it's like they're at the end of their rope when the unicorns use it, and lions are
Right.
just getting started. We're just beginning when we use anger.
So if you don't know what motivates the other person's anger, in the case of a lion, it would be pain. In the case of a unicorn, it would be trying to get out of a trap. Then you
Yeah.
really kind of disarmed. You have no power to understand what's going on. So
Yeah.
hopefully this has fleshed that out a little bit.
Yeah, and that you can see how you express, or when you express anger and when your partner does, and why that can help you not have arguments or help you come back from arguments faster.
So please,
So,
like and subscribe. It really helps us out, and to continue to do more of these episodes. But more importantly, I would really like to hear from people and kind of bounce some of these ideas off their lives and see how
mhm.
this works for them.
Mhm. Yeah. So send us your messages.
So one more thing, don't forget my books, The Dance of the Lion and the Unicorn, which is what we talked about a lot today. And then Mastering Thought is about the voice in your head, and Awakening is about both in one. And the Dance of the Lion and the Unicorn is available as an audio book. So, but feel free to
So
send us
today,
an email.
so today's episode would be a most related to the Dance of the Lion and the Unicorn
That
book,
would be
correct?
yes, that would be the most it's most of it's contained in there. Yeah, except this
Yeah.
concept of being trapped is discussed, but not quite to the extent we discussed it today.
Yeah. So if we want more discussion on that, then it's got to be in the now, not going back for a book.
Right.
So, okay, cool. Well, thank you for answering that question.
Well, it was good for me because I never saw this dichotomy between the lion and the unicorn through the lens of anger, and when I did, it kind of blew me away.
Hmm. Cool. Another cool unexpected surprise from going through these topics in more fine detail.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. How fun for you getting to dive even deeper in what you've mastered. And then you get to share it with all of us.
It's my pleasure and my honor.
Well, I know that I'll come and eat it up every week. So
All right.
let's let's have a great weekend and then come back and talk about perception in 7 days.
All right. Very good. Bye
Sounds
bye.
good. Thanks, Mark.